You very best.
So I thought, you know what? I love that old man. I'm going to go home, write him a song, send it.
It revolves around love. And love is something that if you lose it, it's going to hurt. So, I just thought it was a great title. Even if it doesn't, man, I want to thank them so much for their effort. It's just been incredible.
George Strait finally broke his silence and shocked the world.
I think I would have kept writing, and where I quit writing for years, and I got lazy about that.
At the age of 73, the country music legend unexpectedly went head-to-head with the most controversial name in the music industry, Toby Keith. The revelations not only stunned fans, but also erased all the speculation that had lasted for decades. He only revealed this shocking secret at the right time that made everyone take their hats off. The relationship between George Strait and Toby Keith was not as smooth as many people think. For years, they barely spoke to each other, never appeared on stage together, and never released any music together. For two of country music's top stars, such a long silence is truly unusual, especially when both were at the peak of their careers in the 90s and 2000s, regularly appearing at award shows, specials, and major tours. For a long time, industry insiders have been abuzz about George Strait not inviting Toby Keith to join his epic Cowboy Rides Away farewell tour.
Last goodbye's the hardest one to say.
When asked about the tour's lineup, Strait shared at a press conference before the show in Arlington, "I only choose people who have been with me on the musical journey. Not everyone fits the vibe of the night." The guest list included big names like Alan Jackson, Miranda Lambert, Jason Aldean, and Eric Church. But Toby Keith was not included. This made the public start to notice the silence between the two. Keith, who was one of the brightest stars at the time, with many patriotic songs topping the charts, was completely absent. As for Toby Keith, he once recounted a behind-the-scenes story from a 2006 TV taping when George Strait was also present. While everyone was getting ready, Keith joked George only seemed to smile when the music ended. The remark was not meant to be malicious, but was seen as a sign that Toby felt Strait was too serious, not fitting in with the fun atmosphere commonly found in modern country music. Another notable detail is the early 2000s musical project, when Toby Keith planned to invite George Strait to duet on How Do You Like Me Now, which would later become his biggest hit.
Yeah, I was caught with the crazy one that broke into the stadium and I...
Sources said Strait declined because it didn't fit the musical style. In a private conversation recorded by Country Weekly, Strait explained, "I knew the song would be a hit, but I didn't feel like I belonged there." That decision was seen as evidence that they had difficulty finding common ground in their musical sensibilities and expressions. During this period, Toby Keith and George Strait, but being present at television specials honoring big names in the country scene, avoided sitting close to each other. In an interview with Country Music USA magazine, Strait admitted, "I always respected Toby's talent, but we just weren't on the same page." That silence didn't make the audience forget Toby Keith, but it made many people wonder whether George Strait truly respected his former colleague. Until now, those signs were enough to arouse curiosity and create a big void in the hearts of fans. And it took many years after many changes for people to hear George Strait mention Toby Keith in his own words. When two worlds collect, Strait began his career in the 80s, gradually making his mark through hits like Amarillo by Morning or The Chair.
Well, excuse me, but I think...
Each song is like a slice of real life close to everyday life. He does not follow trends or seek noise in the media, but chooses to maintain his own identity. In contrast, Toby Keith rose to fame in the early 90s with songs like Should Have Been a Cowboy or Courtesy of the Red, White, and Blue, showing a clear personality, patriotic, intense, and sometimes controversial.
American girls and American guys.
That difference makes them both stand out in the country scene, but almost never overlap in their careers. Standing side by side on the nomination boards of major awards, one can see the clear lines. Strait appears in a formal suit, gives a short speech, and walks slowly, while Keith takes the stage with a tilted hat, a relaxed smile, and a humorous line. Even the looks they give the audience reflect their opposing personalities. The contrast in image and style makes them seem like opposite poles of the same musical genre. An analysis in Rolling Stone Country once commented, "Strait is the symbol of laconicism. While Keith represents instinct and stage presence, both make the audience believe what they sing in completely different ways." They have appeared together at many major events. One example is the ACM Awards, where both were nominated in major categories. Strait was honored with "She'll Leave You with a Smile" and Keith with "The Spirited Beer for My Horses." CMT News reported after the event that year that Strait and Keith's presence on the same stage was a testament to the multidimensional appeal of contemporary country music. The event highlighted two distinct styles. One kept the traditional rustic, the other was a rebellious spirit. This helped them attract their own audiences, creating a rich picture of American music. There have been times when that gap seemed to be closing. Toby Keith once shared on social media that he greatly admired George Strait, especially his ability to maintain form and stay in the top 10 continuously for more than 3 decades. It was a rare compliment from Keith, who does not often express much about his colleagues. The statement showed that even though he did not work directly with Strait, he still recognized his talent and position. For his part, although he did not answer directly, George once listed Keith among his influential artists in an old interview. Both have been linked to a potential collaboration with a new generation of young artists. In 2015, rising star Post Malone expressed his desire to record a country album with both Toby Keith and George Strait. In an interview with Whiskey Riff, Malone said, "If I ever get the chance to sit in the studio with George Strait and Toby Keith, that would be the greatest thing in my life." While the project never materialized, it proves that the two legends still resonate with the younger generation, but their different paths. Their contrasts did not create conflict, but kept a clear distance. Strait devoted his life to music farming and family, staying away from noisy activities. Meanwhile, Keith appeared regularly on television, performed in large concerts for the military, and publicly supported the policies he believed in. All of that makes the moment George Strait spoke up about Toby Keith after so many years more special than ever. Any distance in the past seemed to recede, giving way to what was a most important respect for a colleague who had walked the same path, even though each had chosen a separate path. When Cowboy Speaks Out. Toby Keith was diagnosed with cancer in late 2021, but kept the information private for a long time. It was not until June 2022 that he publicly announced his illness, saying that he had undergone multiple rounds of chemotherapy, radiation, and surgery. At that time, Keith briefly shared on social media that he was resting, recovering, and spending time with family. During his treatment, he limited his public appearances, canceled performances, and did not release new music. But his declining health, Toby Keith maintained contact with his fans and showed optimism in his rare appearances. By the end of 2023, he made a surprise return to perform in a series of mini-shows in Las Vegas, marking his first stage appearance in more than 2 years. But performing with a voice and physical condition that were no longer the same, the shows were sold out, showing that the level of interest and affection that the public had for him had not diminished. Toby Keith's passing was widely reported by the American media, not only on music channels, but also in major newspapers such as CNN, NBC, Billboard, Rolling Stone, and Variety. Most of the articles emphasized his role as one of the most representatives of modern country music, who contributed hits with strong imprints of American identity, patriotism, and self-reliance. Toby Keith was born in 1961 in Clinton, Oklahoma. He began his music career in the early 1990s and quickly rose to fame with the song "Should Have Been a Cowboy," a #1 hit on the Billboard Hot Country Songs chart and one of the most played songs of the decade. In a career spanning more than 30 years, he has released more than 20 studio albums, had more than 40 top 10 hits, and sold more than 40 million records worldwide. In addition to music, Toby Keith is also known for his charitable activities and support for the military. He regularly performs for American soldiers overseas in USO shows. Keith also founded the Toby Keith Foundation, which supports families with children with serious illnesses. Immediately after the news of Toby Keith's death was announced, many of his colleagues in the entertainment industry expressed their condolences. Singers such as Blake Shelton, Carrie Underwood, Jason Aldean, and Tim McGraw, Luke Bryan, and a host of other big names in the country and pop worlds posted tributes on social media. U.S. President Joe Biden also sent his condolences to Keith's family and acknowledged his contribution to connecting music with traditional American values. The response from fans was also overwhelming. On Twitter, the hashtag #TobyKeith trended globally within hours of the news being confirmed. Hundreds of thousands of people shared memories of his music from garden parties and graduations to military events and local charities. Songs like American Soldier, Courtesy of the Red, White, and Blue, The Angry American Red Solo Cup, and Beer for My Horses all returned to the iTunes and Spotify charts after his death. Several radio stations across the country have dedicated the day to replaying Toby Keith's hits as a form of tribute while in his birthplace of Oklahoma. Local governments have organized flags to be flown at half-staff and launched campaigns to name streets and parks after him in recognition of his contributions to the arts and community. But not having a public connection, George Strait's presence at the Toby Keith Memorial is a testament to the quiet but enduring solidarity of the country music community, where values are not always expressed through grand gestures, but sometimes just a brief, well-timed word. Last Melio for a Friend. During a 2024 tour concert at Kyle Field in Texas, where George Strait set a record with over 110,000 spectators, the largest crowd of his career, an unexpected moment occurred that caught the attention of the entire country music world. In the middle of his performance of Troubadour, George inserted a quiet, wordless intro reminiscent of a ballad once associated with Toby Keith, the artist who had passed away not long before. Parade magazine and several on-site sources noted that this was not a normal performance, but rather George Strait's way of paying tribute to his colleague, who had just passed away after a long battle with stomach cancer. Although he did not introduce or speak, the quiet opening was considered the implicit message that George wanted to send, a simple but powerful farewell. It all happened musically in the style George Strait has maintained for more than 4 decades, letting the melody do the talking. The tens of thousands of people in attendance that day were completely silent for that moment, a rare reaction on a large-scale concert when everyone seemed to understand the message without anyone having to explain it. Shortly before the concert, George had also participated in the Tom Petty tribute album Petty Country with a cover of You Wreck Me. Although the recording was not directly related to Toby Keith, many audiences later listened to it and felt a deeper meaning of loss and affection for the artists of his time. Some comments on country forums suggested that George's participation in the Petty album and then making a similar musical move on stage showed that he was still choosing his own way to talk about the people who had contributed to the face of modern American music. Throughout his career, George Strait has rarely expressed his personal views through the media. He has avoided reality TV shows, headline-grabbing interviews, or controversial statements. Instead, George has maintained a stable, low-key image and stuck to traditional music, where he lets each line and each guitar strum carry the real message. Therefore, his choice to pay tribute to Toby Keith by inserting a melody into his most crowded concert is not only symbolic, but also a demonstration of a wordless recognition. The surprise is that there has never been any significant artistic connection between them, George Strait and Toby Keith. No duets, no tours, no joint appearances on music products. In fact, they are better known for their silence towards each other, a silent distance that has existed for many years, but both being big names in country music. But because there was no precedent or expectation, this musical action from George Strait is considered all the more sincere and natural. Toby Keith is known for his outspokenness in both his words and his music. He often addresses political, social, and personal issues directly in his lyrics, and he takes a stand. Along with his strong and sometimes controversial style, Toby has also written many songs that reflect traditional values such as family patriotism and a connection to one's roots, all of which are also present in George Strait's music. According to the Songwriters Hall of Fame, Toby Keith has written or co-written over 90% of his career's songs, which is rare for a contemporary country artist. The Kyle Field performance was not officially recorded or released to the public. Nonetheless, many fan-made videos quickly went viral on social media platforms. In those clips, the image of George Strait sitting with a guitar, saying nothing, not looking at the camera, was still shared by the music community as a rare moment when a normally reserved artist chose to speak out through his true nature music. Two statues at two ends of the sky. Over the course of more than 3 decades in the music industry, Toby Keith has been not only a commercially successful artist, but also one of the most powerful and distinctive voices in contemporary country music. He burst onto the scene in the early 1990s and quickly made his mark with "Should Have Been a Cowboy," a chart-topping hit that became the most played radio song of the decade in the United States. Toby Keith is known as an artist with a clear stance, often putting his personal views into music. Songs like "Courtesy of the Red, White, and Blue," "The Angry American Soldier," "Made in America" are not simply commercial music products, but also manifestos reflecting social perspectives, patriotism, and national pride. Not avoiding controversy, he is often evaluated as a person who does not make music to please everyone. It is a musical style that selects audiences, but at the same time creates a unique appeal. During his career, Toby released more than 20 studio albums, sold over 40 million records, had dozens of Billboard top songs, and received many prestigious awards such as ACM, CMA, and Billboard Music Awards. He also founded his own record label, Showdog Nashville, a bold decision that allowed him to control the entire process of music production and distribution, thereby affirming his role as a true independent artist in the music industry. Beyond the stage, Toby Keith is also active in charity and supporting the U.S. military. He regularly performs at military bases overseas and founded the Toby Keith Foundation to support children with serious illnesses. These actions reinforce the image of an artist who not only writes about America, but also lives the values he sings about. Unlike Toby Keith, George Strait is the perfect contrast, an artist who rarely makes a fuss, avoids the media, but has achieved more consistent and lasting success than anyone else in his generation. Since starting out in the early 1980s, George has always been faithful to the traditional country-style shirt-white cowboy hat guitar. He doesn't follow trends or experiment with style, and that's what has helped him capture the hearts of generations of audiences. With more than 60 songs topping the charts, the most in American music history, George Strait is known as the king of country music. He doesn't release albums in a rush or tour massively, but each time he appears, he leaves a deep impression. Songs like Amarillo by Morning the Chair, Check Yes or No, and I Cross My Heart have become icons of Southern American music culture. George is also famous for saying no to things that don't belong to him. He has turned down many television projects, commercial collaborations, or songs that don't fit his style. For him, artistic integrity is more important than any commercial goals. That's why George Strait is admired as a symbol of musical integrity. His personal life reflects this as well. George lives in Texas with his wife and family, spends his time on the ranch, riding horses, hunting, and only performs when he really wants to. His distance from the media has not diminished his popularity, but rather has reinforced his image as an artist who talks less, works more, and lets his music speak for itself. Now, one has left the stage forever. The other continues on the same path, slowly, calmly, and letting the music continue to say the things he never needed to say in words. If you find this story about two country music legends refreshing, don't forget to like, to show your support. Share the video with those who are passionate about music as you are, and subscribe to our channel so you don't miss out on other meaningful stories. Thank you for watching and accompanying us until the end of the video.